Hi there everyone, my name's Naomi Clements and I'm the Research and Evaluation Officer, and I'm going to be starting the webinar today talking you through the new SPoC report and some further guidance into how to record your activity which has taken place from the start of term up until the end of December. So this webinar is a short webinar. We're hoping to run no longer than about 10 minutes. During the webinar, we will be talking about why we, the Sun, need the report from you, what your institution can get from the report, what information you need to have with you to complete the report, how to complete it, and who to contact for any further questions you might have. Just as a reminder, we wanted to clarify some areas for you with regards to what you can spend your money on and what the purpose of the SPoC report is. So the SPoC report captures all of the use of your SPoC and SEAG funding that has been provided to you by Sun. We want to know what activity took place, how much funding was spent on activities, which students specifically took part in that activity, and when did it take place. These reports are really important for us as they enable us to demonstrate to the officers' students how our funding has been used and the correct use of that funding on NCOP learners. And we use that data in our 6 monthly reporting phases to the Office for Students. This academic year, we have 2 SPoC reporting deadlines. The first one is just after you come back from Christmas holidays on Friday, the 11th of January, and that should contain all activity and all spending that took place from the 1st of July up until the 31st of December. The second SPoC deadline is Friday, the 19th of July, and that should include all activity and funding spent between the 1st of January and the 30th of June next year. Our new SPoC reports enable you to track an individual learner's activity and engagement throughout the year. And a quick reminder of what you can use your SPoC funding on. So that's the £14 per head funding. You can use this funding for any costs involved from your time dedicated to administrative purposes such as data tracking and reporting activities, promoting activities and opportunities to various stakeholders within your school, going to meetings with Sun staff, and obviously please do only count this additional funding once you know you have accounted for the SPoC 1,200 baseline payment. In addition, you can use the £14 per learner funding for any additional activities that NCOP learners have taken part in. So things like hiring in motivational speakers or alumni to come and speak to your current NCOP students, employer visits to your school, to cover travel and staff, to go to attend events, and also you can use that £14 per learner funding for teacher CPD, where NCOP learners will be directly benefited, and also any activity where you have engaged NCOP parents, carers, or wider community within target wards. As a quick reminder, any event that takes place and you are using the SPoC funding for, there has to be a minimum of 80% of the available NCOP learner population for that cohort that attends. If it's less than 80%, then funding can be spent proportionally. Very quick reminder of SEAG funding. It's £50 per head, and it's for all eligible NCOP learners in Year 9 and Year 11, and it's to pay for an additional careers intervention. So you have the freedom to choose who delivers that extra intervention. and also what that intervention actually contains. So it could be something like an additional careers interview, mock interviews, mentoring, or attending additional careers workshops or activities. Our new SPoC report enables you to track the learners through each academic year, and we think this will help you in achieving 3 of the Gatsby benchmarks. The first one being a stable careers programme. The data that you collect can be analysed in terms of the type of activity your learners are taking part in, how long those interventions are, and you can use that information when you analyse it to identify strengths in your careers provision and some gaps that could possibly exist as well. By enabling you to track individual learners, it ensures that you have evidence that all of your learners have received SEAG interventions, and that those activities that you're promoting to your students are bespoke and relevant to the individual learners' personal interests and ambitions. And finally, our new SPoC report enables you to address the needs of each individual learner. So it's accurate tracking of interventions over an academic year. And again, when you analyse this data in conjunction with other data sets that you may have within the school, and we are hoping to provide you with additional data sets from SUN, you will be able to provide an evidence-based careers strategy within your school. So we really hope by providing you with this new resource, it will help you and your institution to achieve those Gatsby benchmarks. So why do we need this information? Well, essentially our funding relies on this evidence. We need to make sure that we prove that money has been spent on NCOP learners. And engagement data is really, really key for us to evidence that we're working with at least 20% of NCOP learners in each individual target ward. And the information that you provide within your SPoC reports is really, really key to this. So just to kind of bring that home a little bit, as you can see from the Office for Students, evidence is really, really key. If we're not able to provide evidence of how our funding has been used and how many and from what target wards NCOP learners have been engaged, it could potentially impact upon future funding for SUN. So without being too dramatic, please ensure that you provide the evidence to us as best you can. So before I hand over to my colleague George, who will talk you through what you actually need to do in terms of completing the report, I just wanted to remind you of the different items that you'll need with you. So first of all, you need your completed postcode profiler for this academic year. So that's all year groups from year 9 to year 11. And if you're a school with a sixth form, year 9 through to year 13. You need to have with you any registers of events or workshops, etc., that students have attended within the reporting period. You need to have the cost for those events, and please do remember to include your staff time, and please include any costings for family and community engagement events that may have taken place. Remember to include your cost for additional SPoC related admin duties, the dates and the duration to the nearest hour of events that have taken place. And finally, you need the September to December SPoC report itself.
Okay, hi everyone, I'm George Story, I'm the Admin Officer for the SUN, and I'm just going to spend a bit of time talking you through the new version of the SPoC report, which bits we're hoping you'll be able to fill in, and which bits have changed since the last one. So this has all been based on feedback. Thank you so much for those who provided it. I'm going to start off with the homepage tab. And this is basically an overview of everything relating to your school, and it's going to have all the funding on it and the activity you've done so far. So if you could begin by filling in the details at the top of the page. So we have your name, your email, and your school. The Sun project leader will fill in their details either before they send it across to you or at a later date. So with this homepage, all we need to do is fill in all the cells that are highlighted white. All the grey cells are either pre-calculated or it's just a bit of information for you. So for example, here we have the number of NCOP learners at your school, year 9 through to year 11, for those without a sixth form, and then through to year 13 with a sixth form. If you could fill in that information, which you can get from your postcode profiler, and we'll talk about that in a few moments' time. And then if you could put in the underspend that you had last academic year, I think most project leaders will have met with you about this figure. So if you don't know that, please get in touch with them. Then we move down to the CIAG activity. We've changed it around this time. Rather than asking you to put an actual total amount of money that you spent on your NCOP learners, all we need to know is how many of them you've seen in year 9 and year 11, and whether you feel you're going to be able to see all of them or they will all receive a CIAG intervention before July 2019. This will basically just let us know that you're on track to spend all of that money, or at least allocate all of that money. And as I've said here, you're not required to report on the actual figure that you've spent for the CIAG anymore. At the bottom of the homepage, we have your SPoC funding overview. And what this does is it copies across the money that you've spent on events from year 9 through to year 13. And that's basically done via the tabs at the bottom of the page. And we'll talk through those in just a moment. Over here on the right, we have the allocation. So the SPoC funding is copied directly from this cell up here. The underspend, again, is the one that you put in up here, so that just copies straight across, you don't have to worry about those. The total funding available just adds those two together. The total event cost is a total of all of these here that you've done with your year groups, and then the total non-student cost is directly from the non-student activities tab, which again, we'll revisit. Eventually, all of that will calculate into your total funding remaining, and that will basically just give you an ongoing calculator of how much you've got left to spend for the term September to December 2018. Okay, so what we're going to do is look at the year group tabs. We've changed again this year to make it slightly easier to record, particularly on an ongoing basis, but then when we get to the reporting stage, it will really help us out as well. So what we have is quite a similar setup to before, in the sense that we need names, postcodes, and it'll tell you their target ward. And we've also added some event details up here this time in pink. And this has name, type, duration, date, and cost. So the first step for all of these tabs is to go over to your 2018-19 postcode profiler. This should be familiar. We've used random name generators here, so they're all false. So this is obviously where you copy in your student names, their year group, and then their postcode, and it identifies whether or not they're an NCOP learner. So what we're going to do, this is the page that you'll enter all your details onto. If you go to Pivot Summary, it will show you this, and it's just a brief overview of how many students you have in each of our target wards, and then the grand total altogether. The first step to make this page a little bit more useful for you is to click this box here which says year group or learner level. That will then start including how many year 9, 10, 11, and 12 and 13, where relevant, students you have in each ward. And in this pivot table fields bit over on the right, if you can drag and drop year group over into the columns tab, it splits it all out for you. So now you can see how many year 10s you have in each ward. Year 11s obviously gives you the total down at the bottom here. You might want to, just to make it slightly easier, is if you right click on the year 9 heading and find move in that menu, you can move year 9 to the beginning, and now they're all in order. Excel doesn't put year 9 at the beginning by default, unfortunately. So once you have this, it gives you a nice breakdown of the number of students in each ward. In order to separate out just the year 9s, it's a very simple step. If you find the grand total of year 9s and double click that cell, it automatically creates a sheet with all of your year 9 students, all of their postcodes, and then a bit further down, it will tell you the ones which are part of a target ward. So what we do just for the Year 9 tab we're looking at, if you click on the very top name and scroll down, if you hold down the Shift key and click as well, it will highlight that entire row for you. It just saves you dragging your mouse all the way down the list. Click Control-C to copy that list, and then we move back across to the SPoC report. If you click in unique ID A001 and then paste by pressing Control and B, it will give you all of your Year 9s in a list. Then what we do is head back over to the PCP, complete the same step for the postcodes, making sure that the order remains the same so that the postcodes are still in the same place they were. Oh, I'll try that again. Okay, so we copy the list of postcodes and paste it using Control and V into that same column. Brilliant. So you'll notice that quite a few of these are blank. By default, the NCOP learners will be at the bottom of this list, but that just shows you all of your Year 9s with their names and postcodes. What we'll do then is we start entering in some event details. So we have 2 example events to talk through today. The first one is going to be a careers fair. We'll say it was a careers fair for the entire school. Because it's a careers fair, we have the information, advice and guidance type. If you do need any help on event type, please ask your project leader. The event duration we're going to say was 4 hours, and we'll say it happened on the 18th of October 2018. The cost, we're just going to put in £500 for now, and that, again, as Naomi said, it should include everything in terms of travel, the venue, the staff time, all the costs that you incurred as part of that event. If you could add them up and pop them in there, that would be brilliant. And because we're saying this is a careers fair for the entire school, if you could select 1, so with these attended here, rather than it being a yes or no, it's a 1 and a 0, just so that we can actually total up the number of interactions later on. And because everybody attended this one, if you find this little green square in the bottom of the cell and drag it all the way down your list of students to the bottom, making sure not to go too far, it will give all of those a 1 in their column, and that just means that everyone's attended. With this being a whole school event, we do need to know which Year 10, Year 11, Year 12 and Year 13 students attended as well. So it will be the same thing. To make it easier for yourselves, you can copy this across. Notice that I haven't copied across the cost, and I will discuss that in just a moment. We can go here and paste that in. So that's the same event information, but now it's just for Year 10s. And obviously you can carry on and do it across to Year 11 and Year 12 and 13. What we ask this time around, where you have an event that multiple year groups have attended, like a whole school careers fair, we only want to know the cost once, and it's best if you put it in the lowest year group. So in this case, it would be Year 9. If you had an event just for sixth form students, you might put that the cost only in Year 12. This is just because it copies it all across to the home tab, and it would end up being about £2,500, where realistically you only spent £500. So yeah, be sure not to duplicate the cost. And then again, the same step can be done for the Year 10s. Add in the 1 and drag it down. A little bit far there. Right. And you can just repeat that step all the way up the year groups. The other one that we've got, the other example event, is going to be a visit to a STEM event. So this can be a nice sort of engineering careers day, for example, that's somewhere off the school site. And because that's off the school site, it will be a campus visit. This one will say it was only 2 hours. We'll say it was today. So this one will say the event cost was £250. So with this event, it might be the case that all of you went, or it could be the case that only some of them went, and perhaps it was just those students who live in an NCOP target ward. So in this example, what you'll do is put a 1 and copy them down. And obviously you can select 1 manually. You don't always have to click the drop-down box. You can just type a 1. So if some of these students did arrive, type a 1 manually in there, and that just allows you to keep track of who's attended and let us know that information as well. The next step, once you've done all of the events across all of your year groups, is the non-student activity tab. And as it says on the tin, this is just for anything relating to people other than students. So that can be parents and community events, teachers and other members of staff at your school. And we've also included a space for you to put your time as a single point of contact. As Naomi mentioned, anything that's above that 6 days a year. So to talk you through this, we have the parent and community activity. All we'd like to know is if you've used any of your SPoC funding, and it's important to note that this is just the £14 per NCOP learner funding, and it's the only thing we want you to report on this time. And obviously, if you have used any of the funding, it'd be great to know how many people attended and the overall cost. So if you did a parent event, you just click yes. Number attended, we'll say we had 20 people there, and then the overall cost of the event might have been £100. So that's just a quick way of making a note of that. Where you've had multiple sort of activities or events for parents, if you could sort of total it up across all of them. So maybe we had 3 events, and across the 3 events, a total of 50 parents came. Then we can say it was about £100 per event, so that would be a total of £300. These ones aren't separated out like they are with the year group tabs. With staff activity, we have any sort of CPD and training for members of staff. And again, we can say yes, and maybe 15 members of your staff attended, and that was only, say, £50 for that event. This all copies across onto the homepage. There's a nice way for you to keep track of it briefly on here. For the additional staff time, this is a place for you to record anything that you've done outside of those 6 days per year that we've sort of made a contribution of £1,200 for as a nominal fee. And to reiterate what Naomi said, it can include a lot of things, and that can be staff cover for events, completing reporting activities for us, attending things like networking events and anything that we've invited you to, and then advertising all of our events to your learners by email, because we recognise that can take a bit of time. So what we'll say is maybe you spent an hour, and we'll just put for now £30. That was advertising one of our residentials to all of your year 10 learners, for example. And again, we could maybe have 2 hours, we'll call that £60, and that can be basically administering a survey to either the whole school or to a year group. That will add all of those up together alongside the amount of money you've spent on your parent community activity and staff activity, and it'll give you a total amount of funding spent on non-student activity here. Back over on the home page, we now have a slightly more complete picture with the funding. So at the moment, obviously we have a negative figure because we haven't popped in any of our postcode profiler data. But in the pivot summary, you can find this information as well. It's quite important to get rid of the NA column here. So if you click the drop-down box, that will get rid of anybody that's not an NCOP learner. And now you can see we have the number of NCOP learners at the bottom here. That's the information to pop into here. Let's just double check we're getting this right. 82, 44, and 23. Okay, so that we can see you've got 0 underspend. So that is auto-calculates, a quick demonstration of how it auto-calculates all the funding that you're entitled to for this academic year. And it copies it all down here for you, gives you the total funding available. This is what we've spent on events. This was the non-student activity. And then that is the total funding remaining. There will be a link when this video is hosted online to find it again here. And the important thing is that if you have any questions with this or it doesn't seem to be working for you, then please contact your SUN project leader and they will be more than happy to help. Thank you very much for your time, and that is everything.